saying that we're recording now. So welcome to those of you who are joining us from YouTube land. Few housekeeping notes. First off, my name is Jamie Vibach, and I am the Conservation Foundation's Will County Director. That means I oversee all the work that we do here in Will County. And then ever since the shutdown, I had the brilliant idea to start doing these webinars. So we've been doing these webinars ever since the shutdown. I think we've done about 30 of them by now. It's crazy. So I want to thank you all for keeping us going. If you guys weren't attending, I wouldn't be doing them. So I'm really enjoying doing these. So thank you all for tuning in and giving me a little outlet for what I would normally be doing in person. So just so you know, your cameras are off and your microphones are muted because this is a webinar format. So don't worry if you're joining us in your PJs or whatever, I can't see you. So there is that. So this webinar is being recorded currently, so please check out our YouTube channel. All the past recordings are there as well. So I've done, as I said, almost 30 webinars probably by now, and we've got lots of different topics. Feel free to check those out anytime you would like. During this webinar, if you have a question, please use that Q&A box. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to find the questions, especially when the webinars get a little bit bigger, the chat box can just kind of fly. So it's easier to find the questions there for me. And for your safety, you should only be able to see what I post in the chat, but just in case I missed a setting or somebody gets around it, please don't click on any links other than what I might post in the chat. On the TCF side of things, these webinars are offered free to the public, but we do encourage you to consider a donation or a membership. The more people we have attending, the more it costs us to run them. So at the end of the webinar, you're going to be taken to a page with a whole bunch of resources on our website. There's going to be our Conservation at Home brochures, the portions of our website, links to our Bringing Nature Home brochure, that yellow brochure that I love so much, all those kind of things, but also our virtual tip jar. So if you're enjoying these webinars, I do encourage you to donate to help keep us running. You also have the option to become a member. So then you can take advantage of our wide variety of members only stuff. So take a look at that. Upcoming webinars. So far we've been doing them on Mondays and Thursdays. So this Thursday we're going to be doing What's Blooming. I'm basically going to take a look out the window, walk around my yard, see what's blooming when I drive past the forest preserves and up at our farm in Naperville. So we're going to take a look at what's blooming now and see how that fits into the garden plan of having things blooming all year long. Now, next week we are starting the new look of our webinars. So basically same great content, same smiling faces, but it's going to be on Wednesdays now. Instead of doing it twice a week, we're just cutting it down to once a week. So it'll be on Wednesdays. Based on our surveys, you guys still like the 1 o'clock time slot. So Wednesdays now at 1 o'clock starting in August. And to kick things off, August 5th, we're going to do Magnificent Monarchs, where I get to just geek out and show you all my love for monarchs and why I think monarchs are so amazing. We will have some special guests, and depending on what stage of their life they're in, we'll see who visits us for our Magnificent Monarchs next week, Wednesday, August 5th. All right, there is our housekeeping stuff out of the way. And now, without further ado, let's talk conservation at home. Go back to there, come back to there, and share. There we go. So we should be sharing the screen right now. Now there you can see conservation at home, and that is me. That is my contact information. I will let you know I'm working from home, so if you call, you will get my voicemail. I do get my voicemails, but email is generally the easier way to get a hold of me. So if you need to get a hold of me, if you have questions that you think of afterwards, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. I am more than happy to get back to you on those. So we are the Conservation Foundation. We are a nonprofit. We've been around since 1972. And our goal in all of this is to help improve the health of our communities. When we say improve the health, we don't just mean for the bugs and bunnies out there, we mean for our human health too. So protecting rivers, protecting open space is good for us as well. And we are an accredited land trust, which probably doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of you, but it does mean that we're doing things the right way. This is a national organization that has recognized us for doing things well, financially, as well as procedurally and all that kind of stuff. So that's really a big deal, and we do kind of like to brag about that a little bit. So we are a land trust, and so this shows you where we work. So you can see mostly we're working in the collar counties to the Chicago area. We've helped protect over 35,000 acres. I think we're over those 200 parcels by now, 43 conservation easements in 7 counties. We have our core 4 counties, Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will, but we go where we can help. So I just recently helped to do a project in Grundy County, and it was one of those that fit really well with what we do. So it's a beautiful butterfly garden down there, and we're having the ribbon cutting on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's where we work. That's what we do. And why? Why do we do this? Quality of life. It helps to protect water quality, our drinking water, as well as, the water that our kids like to go wading in or fishing in or swimming in, the streams that maybe run behind our homes, and as well as the water that we drink. Protects our air quality. I mean, I like breathing. Breathing's a good thing. Wildlife habitat, those bugs and bunnies and birds and all those other little critters, they need to have healthy land and healthy water and healthy air as well. And it creates opportunities for us to take our kids outside. My kid, from the time he was born, loved to be outside. I mean, he wasn't even walking. He would crawl to the person who was closest to the door and ask to be picked up. And as soon as you picked him up, that little finger came out and it was pointing towards the door. He wanted to go outside. And God forbid it was raining or, 5 below or whatever out there. He wanted to be outside. So kids need to spend time outside. It's good for their development. It's good for their health. And it's good for us adults as well too. So it's our responsibility to future generations to make sure that they have those opportunities out there too. So so that's why we feel like what we do is so, so important. So one of the things that we talk about so much is native plants and making your backyard part of the ecosystem by planting native plants there. Why are native plants so important? If it's green, it's good, right? Well, not necessarily. Native plants specifically will cost you less money and less time to maintain because they're adapted to these conditions. They're used to being here. They're fine with our cool, wet springs and our hot, dry summers. An occasional wildfire doesn't bother them. They're used to that. So we don't have to spend all this time trying to fool them into thinking they're in there wherever they're originally from. Grass is not native to here. That's why we have to spend so much time watering it in the summer and fertilizing and aerating and doing all this stuff to it because it doesn't really want to be here. Most of the grass, Kentucky bluegrass, the grass that we use in our lawns, a lot of times that comes from like the Middle East, which if you look at the root system, it makes sense. They've got those real shallow nut-like roots that are great for holding on to sand. Well, at least here in the Chicago area, we do not have sandy soils. It doesn't want to be here. So we have to baby it and basically trick it into thinking it's where it wants to be. So by planting native plants, we save ourselves time and money. Once they get established, they're very, very little maintenance. I didn't say no maintenance, but much less maintenance than bringing in these exotic things that are like, what am I doing here? This isn't, Europe. This isn't Asia. This isn't wherever it's originally from. So we start with this. We start with this little patch of native plants that we have here. And that brings in these guys. That brings in the caterpillars and the butterflies laying their eggs on there and all the other insects laying their eggs on these plants. And yeah, they take a bite out of them every now and then. So your plants are going to have a few little holes in them. It's not a big deal. It's what we're doing. But then when we bring in those caterpillars, now we bring in the things that eat the caterpillars, especially this time of year, birds that have young ones, they're feeding them caterpillars. So, we see a little bit less activity on our feeders because they are out in search of bugs to feed their babies. Caterpillars are like little bags of baby food. right? They're soft and they're squishy. And if you watch how violently a mother bird shoves those caterpillars down their babies' throats, you know, having something soft bodied like that is probably pretty helpful. So I read somewhere that caterpillars are so nutrient dense, they have even more nutrients than beef. It's crazy. So they're these super soft bodies, squishy bits of baby food. And by bringing them to your yard, you're bringing in the food for these birds. If you feed them, they will come. I said this in college. It's true of college students. It's true of animals as well. If you feed them, they will come. And then we bring these guys, well, now we bring in their predators too, because now you're feeding everybody. And I know it's a little bit sad to see a raptor take down a bird or something, but everybody's got to eat. But now you've made your yard a part of the ecosystem rather than being apart from the ecosystem. So you're helping to create habitat for all of these birds and bugs and bunnies, and now your yard is really teeming with life. So here's another reason. We were talking about the root systems on here, and you can see that Kentucky bluegrass there. Look how shallow those roots are. Any of you with houseplants know, when you water, those first top couple inches, they dry out really, really fast. So if your plants don't have deeper roots, you're going to need to water them frequently to keep them hydrated. Whereas if you take a look at the native plants, I mean, they're going down sometimes 15, 17 feet. Some of those, like silphiums especially, it's a 6-foot tall plant, but their roots are also going down 15 feet. All the way that far down in the soil, there's still plenty of moisture, even when those top couple inches have dried out. So it's really, really important to know that your native plants, once they become established, they're really taking care of themselves. And they make the landscape functional. I love this picture because it's sort of the tale of two cities here. We've got on the left-hand side your usual grass. This picture was probably taken in July, probably this time of year. And you just see how brown and dead that grass looks compared to the right-hand side there, where we've got tons of native plants in there. We've got our coneflowers, we've got our orange butterfly weed there. We've got some, what is that? Probably prairie dock, it looks like. All kinds of stuff going on there. And it's been done in a terraced manner that's probably up on a hill. So by having those terraces there, it helps to keep the rainwater in place, hold it where it falls rather than sheeting across the landscape like it would right across that grass there. The oak tree that's there, that's great. But, you see that grass just, it looks so ugly compared to how functional that landscape is on the right-hand side. I guarantee you that right-hand side is going to be full of insect life, butterflies and native bees and all kinds of great stuff going on in there. So if you have a pond, chances are it's been mowed down to the edge, and the geese love it. It's just the way it is. Geese love mowed grass. So they want to be able to walk into a pond and walk out and be able to see in all directions. If they can't see, it makes them really nervous and they're going to go someplace else. So by mowing it all the way down to the edge, you can see some erosion going on over here. That's a big problem too. Remember, grass has those really shallow roots. They don't hold the soil that well. So erosion is a big problem. But then you have the geese that are here too, that are just, they're just loving it. They're in heaven. They can see all over. They can see where there's predators. It's a perfect habitat for them. So if you want to prevent that, you got to plant stuff around the edges. So this is a project that we helped work on and created this naturalized shoreline. So we've got things like arrowhead growing there. That's this guy right here, this sort of arrow-shaped plant here. That's called arrowhead. Looks like some false sunflowers. There's some daisies in there. There's some prairie clover, monarda, also called bee balm, gray-headed coneflower, lots of stuff going on here. And look how pretty that is too, right? You've got lots of flowers and things going on. And I'll tell you what, the geese will hate this. Anything that's higher than their heads. If they can't see, they don't want to be there. So you are not going to have a problem with geese in this area. As kind of a funny side note, on this project, this was in a subdivision, and we put this up there and the neighbors were loving it, except for one neighbor decided she did not want this at all. She mowed it all down, mowed it right straight down to the water line. And then she noticed she's the only one who has geese in her yard, and all her neighbors have butterflies and birds and she doesn't have any. And then she starts complaining, well, how come they all have it and I don't? And like, what's different? You know, had you not mowed all that down, you would have had all the same benefits that they would have as well. So I don't know why somebody would mow this down. It's gorgeous. So lots of bright, colorful flowers. Like I said, you're going to have birds, you're going to have butterflies, you're going to have all kinds of great stuff going on here. And, you know, and this doesn't have to be 6 feet tall, right? We're talking maybe 2 feet. That's all it takes. So again, on the left, you can see the problems that they have there with algae, with erosion, all kinds of, you know, it just doesn't look attractive. Whereas on the other side, now we've got some flowers going on. We've got the grasses that are growing down right to the water's edge there, helping to hold things in place, protecting it from any, the washout. So when you put chemicals on your lawn, when you put down grub treaters and fertilizers and things like that on your lawn, it doesn't just stay there. Anytime it rains, that rain is going to pick all that stuff up and wash it into the nearest body of water. So if you have a pond in your neighborhood, and that pond is getting constant injections of these fertilizers, it's going to cause algae problems because that's what the algae feeds on. So by having that native plant buffer, that's the other thing is these plants will suck up all of those pollutants and things and keep them from going into the water in the first place. So that's how having that little buffer on the shoreline helps to keep the water cleaner, helps prevent erosion, helps prevent geese, helps prevent lots of problems. And when you have a butterfly garden, hey, it's less mowing. This was a park district property, and it was originally grass. It's 2 trails coming together, and they would have to bring the mowers out just to mow that little triangle of land there. So we said, hey, how about instead of doing that, how about we put some flowers in there? So we've got some cone flowers, maybe some yarrow. I'm not sure what that white one is. It's in there, but you know, lots of stuff going on. I guarantee you now, as people are walking past, biking past, there's butterflies and all kinds of stuff going on in there. So, and it actually ended up saving the park district money because they no longer had to truck a mower out there, spend the guy's time to, you know, 5 minutes of mowing and then load the thing back up and go again. So it's less mowing, saves you money, saves you time. So one of the questions that I get every time we talk about putting in pollinator gardens or, you know, planting native plants, especially around schools and places like that, people say, well, you know what, I can't do that because I'm allergic to bee stings, or, you know, I'm afraid of getting stung. I don't want to bring in the bees. Well, I'm here to tell you, native bees are not the ones that are going to sting you. You have to really try to get stung by them, especially like the carpenter bees on the lower left-hand side there. You know, those males, they don't even have stingers. They're like big flying teddy bears. They're kind of ridiculous. These are not the guys that are stinging you. So they're way too busy collecting nectar and pollen. And, you know, many of the native ones, they don't have that same sort of family structure like we think about with honeybees, with the queens and all the workers. A lot of times they're more solitary bees. So they don't have a big hive to defend anyway. So you have to go out and like grab them and like intentionally try to get stung in order for these guys to even worry about you. This kind of displays the difference here. So honeybees are actually not native. They are an agricultural animal, just like pigs and cows. They were brought in to make us honey. They're usually brought in from Italy or other places in Europe. But honeybees, as well as our native bees, their stinger is kind of like a fish hook. So it's got a barb on the end so that they can only sting once. When they sting, that stinger gets embedded in your skin. When they fly away, it actually rips off part of their abdomen. They're going to die. They know this. They're not just going to go around stinging willy-nilly because they're going to die. So yellow jackets are a type of wasp. Wasps, their stingers are more like a hypodermic needle. They can sting over and over and over again and then fly away laughing. I swear I've heard it. So yellow jackets and other types of wasp are generally carnivores. They don't care about your flowers. They're going after other insects. So they're the ones that are more likely to sting. And I swear, especially in the fall, like they get in a bad mood, like they know they're going to die. I read this very fascinating article one time that said, you know, they spend all summer very busy and working hard. And then the fall comes and they have nothing to do. So now they're bored and irritable. And that's why they're more likely to sting. I don't know. So they're the ones that are going for your pop can. They're the ones that are swarming around the garbage cans. Or you're, you know, going after your bologna sandwich or whatever. They like the salt, and they're the ones that are more likely to sting you. So having native plants does not increase your chances of being stung by bees, because the bees, the ones that are pollinating, are not the ones that care. All right, so if you're looking to put some native plants in your yard, this is a great place to start. So these 5 genus here, Rudbeckia, which are the black-eyed Susans, asters, they're, I think it's pronounced Symphotrichum, milkweed, the Asclepias family, oaks, the Quercus family, and goldenrod, the Solidago family. These 5 genus actually support over 75% of all of the insects that are native here. So 3 out of every 4 use these 5 plants either as host plants, in other words, what their babies eat, or nectaring plants. So if you just plant these 5, you're already on a good path to helping protect our pollinators. I'd be careful with the goldenrods. There are some that are a little more aggressive than others and get kind of weedy. So be careful with those. There are some that are better to plant than others. But, you know, black-eyed Susans are wonderful. Asters can look a little bit weedy until they bloom, and then they're fantastic. They're also really great because they bloom in the fall. There's not a whole lot of stuff that blooms in the fall. So when you're planting your garden, you want to make sure you have things blooming all year long, or at least as much of the year as you can manage. So in the fall, there's not a whole lot blooming. Everything's kind of finishes up by, say, the end of August, but that's just when asters are really starting to look good. So there's several different types of asters, sky blue asters and all that, but that's a really good place to start too, because as pollinators some of them migrate like monarch butterflies, they need food sources, and food gets kind of scarce starting in the fall. So having something that blooms in the fall is really great for them. Milkweed's also really great. It is the food source for monarch butterflies. It's the only thing their caterpillars will eat. It's where mama monarch lays her eggs. So in addition to that, the flowers are fantastic, and they're great for lots of different pollinators. Lots of different butterflies like to feed on the flowers. As you can see there, that looks like a giant swallowtail. Lots of things nectar on the flowers, and I can testify from the milkweed that are in my yard. They are just buzzing with life. It's like a whole community. We'll talk more about that next week. So milkweeds are great, and oaks. Hundreds and hundreds of different types of insects have their caterpillars in oak trees. It's crazy. Doug Tallamy, who wrote probably the premier book on planting native plants, talks about how he went outside and he just walked around an oak tree that was in his yard and counted the different species. And there were something like 400 different species he was able to count of insects and caterpillars. And then he walked next door to his neighbors, I think it was a pear tree or something, and there were maybe 10. So just magnitudes of difference between having those native trees and plants here versus some of the non-native stuff. So oaks are fantastic things to plant. And you can add them to your existing landscaping. There's nothing here saying that, you know, you have to go out and create a whole new flower bed, though if you want to, knock yourself out, but you don't have to. You can just slowly start replacing the things in your landscaping, like those daylilies. You know, we call them ditch lilies because that's where they show up. and they escape from gardens and end up in all these places they're not supposed to. You know, swap them out with some Coreopsis up there in the top left. Liatris or Blazing Star there in the lower left. That's another great one that's blooming right now, and they are fantastic. Butterflies just love them. Butterfly milkweed up there top middle. That's a great one too. Brilliant, brilliant orange flowers. And I usually say it grows up to about knee high, but if it's really happy, it can get, you know, kind of between knee and waist high. But it's a great landscaping plant because it's just a beautiful, full looking shrub with these brilliant, brilliant orange flowers in them. Then we got yarrow there on the top left. Yarrow is a great one, can have either yellow or white flowers depending on the variety that you get. These very delicate looking lacy leaves, I just love them. And then we have cardinal flower down there bottom middle. Cardinal flower is a great native. Just that brilliant red, really, really striking. Likes it a little bit wetter, but that's a really nice native plant too. And then don't forget our shrubs down there in the bottom right. That's a spice bush, and there is a type of butterfly that is the host for, called the spice bush swallowtail. They've got crazy looking caterpillars. I love them, but they're really pretty butterflies as well too. And then the shrub itself has really nice fall foliage on it, that really pretty yellow color to it. So really nice plants, very easy to substitute things in your landscaping. A rose bush or a hosta, swap out that hosta for some butterfly weed. That's great stuff. And in my opinion, so much prettier than hostas too. You also want to manage your stormwater. This is something else that we look for when we do our conservation at home visits, is we're looking for somehow managing your stormwater. So on the left, you see a rain barrel. We do supply those. If you are interested in buying one, the website that you'll be taken to at the end of the webinar will have a link to buy these. And the company that we get them from, they are locally made. They're made down in Morris, Illinois, and the guy will ship them to you. So even if you live outside of our area, my Wisconsin friends, if you're interested in getting one, you can absolutely order those too, and he will ship it to you. But these are honestly some of the most well-made and least expensive rain barrels I've seen. I mean, they're cheaper than the ones I've seen at Lowe's and Home Depot, and much better made. The reason the company's called Upcycle is because they take these barrels that were originally used to ship food products over from, Europe and South America and wherever. According to US law, they can't be reused. So normally they would just go to the landfill. Instead, our friends at Upcycle take them, clean them out, retrofit them into beautiful rain barrels. And because they had food stuff in them before, they're safe. They don't have weird chemicals or anything like that in them. So rain barrels are really a great way to help manage the stormwater that falls on your property, keep it from flowing into the streams and our rivers and causing flooding and things like that. So, and every time it rains, there's 55 gallons of free water. For those of you who live in town, who get a water bill, it's really a great addition and a great way to water your plants. Stormwater is so much better for watering your plants than softened tap water. On the right, you can see a rain garden. And, this is one of those, your mileage may vary. Local regulations may or may not allow you to do something like this. But this was a ditch in somebody's yard, and they said, gee, every time it rains, we get standing water there for days. It's all muddy. It's hard to mow. So we turned it into a rain garden. You dig it a little bit deeper, and you plant plants in there intentionally that like it wet. They like to be in wetter areas. And now we've got these plants soaking up the additional water. They are taking up the space. So, hey, you don't have to mow a muddy area anymore. And then you don't have that standing water that's breeding mosquitoes and causing problems. So rain gardens are really a nice way to deal with water issues in a yard. This is probably the #1 issue that I get called out for, is people saying, I've got so much water in my yard. What can I do about this? So rain gardens are a great solution for this. It gives the water in your yard a place to go and helps you just to manage those really wet areas of your yard without passing the problem further down the line, or you know, pushing more water out into our rivers and streams. So it really does help to keep the rainwater in place. I did an entire webinar on rain gardens and rain barrels, how to create them. So if you're interested in learning more about these, check out our YouTube channel on the rain gardens and rain barrels webinar. So our Conservation at Home program is a program where we come to you, and one of us will come out, walk around your yard with you, and talk about your goals for your yard, and we can make recommendations on native plants, rain gardens, all kinds of things like that, and just give you some ideas. We don't do the work of putting in these gardens, but we can give you ideas and help recommend other companies if you're interested in that. So in Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will County, that is our service area. Drop me an email and I can get you to the right person for that. If, however, you are outside of our service area, we do have some other folks available. So you can see there, if any of these apply to your area, you can contact those people. If, however, you're outside of all of those areas, there are other land trusts out there besides us. There's actually a rather large out there in the US. That findalandtrust.org website is really good, because then you can find whoever is closest to you. We have some franchisees out there, that's those other folks whose names you see there. But even if they are not one of our franchisees, they may still be willing to help you identify native plants for your yard, all kinds of things like that. So again, if you're outside of our area, contact one of those folks there, or find your nearest land trust and reach out to them. So through our Conservation at Home program, we're probably over 1,000 certified properties. I haven't gotten the numbers updated recently, but when you do become certified, and so again, you call us, we come out, walk around with you. If you've got a variety of native plants, if you're managing your stormwater, if you're controlling for invasive species, then you may be ready for certification. And when you get certified, you get that nice little sign there to put up in your yard that tells your neighbors, hey, I know what I'm doing. Or, you know, somebody has recognized me for making efforts to make my yard part of the ecosystem. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go here. This is what I call native but neat. This is actually my dad's house. And after hearing me go on and on about native plants for a while, he moved into this home and decided he was going to go all native. And so he bought all these plants and he's put them in there. I was just over there yesterday. It's awesome. It is so gorgeous. This was the first year he put it in. We are now in year 2 and things are just really filling in. He didn't have to mulch anything in there because everything is just filled in so much. He's got some other plants that are in there now too that look great. And I mean, it was just, we counted probably 10 or 15 different species of insects just walking by. It was awesome. So you have the native but neat method, but you also have the wild and free sort of prairie looking method. I like this method, or, you know, this kind of layout, because you've got all these different plants in there and it's forming a community. And like with everything, diversity in your plants is great, because now you're supporting lots of different types of insects. Some insects are more specific to some types of plants than others. The plants are, as they grow up, they support each other, so you don't have things flopping over. You know, it's really a nice community setting here that has lots of variety to support as many different pollinators as possible. So Conservation at Home has a sister program called Conservation at Work, where we can also certify non-residential properties. So, you know, maybe the place where you work has lots of native plants out there and wants to be recognized. This is just a few of the places that we have certified. You might recognize a few names there, like the Morton Arboretum, the Shedd Aquarium, several hospitals, several universities. Every Will County Forest Preserve facility has now been certified. And so some of these companies are really doing a very nice job in making an ecosystem friendly landscaping for their property. This was a library, I believe in Wheaton, and they put this new addition on that's got all these windows, and they put a bunch of chairs in front of them, and they couldn't figure out why nobody wanted to sit in these chairs. Like, nobody was interested in this, but you know, who wants to look out on that? So we worked with them and talked to them about putting in a pollinator garden there instead. Now it looks like this, and they can't keep people out of the chairs. There's like a line of people waiting to use these chairs. You can see they've got a little bird feeder up there. So there's probably little chipmunks running around, and birds and butterflies and all kinds of things using this. So it really makes, it just makes us feel better looking out at this as opposed to just that little expanse of, you know, half dead green grass. An industrial area, you know, how many times have you driven past something that looks like this? They have to pay to mow that. And to maintain it, you know, that costs a lot of money to have to mow it. So instead, they put that in. So they put in this natural restored landscape. I mean, if I'm eating lunch, now I'm going outside to eat lunch because I want to sit and look at this instead of, you know, just brown grass. All kinds of beautiful flowers going on here. And the best part is they don't have to mow it anymore, maybe once a year. And the rest of the time, they've got flowers and it looks attractive, and it's saving them money too. So here in Will County, we're doing a lot of different work. We're helping the Village of Frankfort restore Prairie Park. We're working with homeowners associations to help take care of their ponds. We're doing volunteer work days like you can see here. That's actually my husband and son helping out at a work day that we had. Getting rid of invasive species. This park is really starting to look fantastic. You know, it was put in and it looked really nice, and then it was neglected for a few years when they stopped paying for the maintenance on it. And then they brought us in. They now have professionals helping to maintain it, as well as having a few community work days. And it's really bringing the community together to help restore this park and just make it look beautiful again. There are so many just absolutely gorgeous native plants in here now. Tons of milkweed, so lots of butterflies. I've seen green heron there. I saw a coyote there once. It's this little tiny park, and this little coyote comes trotting through there. But you know, green-winged teals, or I'm sorry, blue-winged teals. Just lots of different wildlife now using this park, and as well as the residents. You know, I just love seeing so many residents getting their family pictures taken there now. It's really cool to see. So, and then just helping residents make better landscape choices through our Conservation at Home program. So if you are interested in getting more involved with the Conservation Foundation, you can become a member. As I said, when you leave this webinar, the website that you'll be on is our resources page. There'll be information on there on how to become a member. You can also visit us at our McDonald farm location in Naperville or our Dickson farm in Montgomery. Our McDonald farm is actually a working farm. We farm 49 of the 60 acres there organically, and it's operated as a CSA, so people can buy into shares of that produce and receive shares all summer long. I have been a member of that CSA now for about 3 years, and the produce that we get out of there is fantastic. It's absolutely gorgeous produce. And delicious. So, and we feed about 500 families out there too, so it's really cool. Our Dickson farm out in Montgomery is a historic farm, generally not so open to the public, but they have lots of events and things like that there too that you can check out. You can also follow us on social media. That's where you can keep up to date on the different webinars that we're doing and find out about all the other things that we're doing as well. And we post some great nature shots too. So, and then you can get your yard certified. So if you're in our service area, again, drop me an email. I'd be happy to set something up with you. Even if you're not ready to be certified just yet, even if you're just starting out and you don't have a single native plant in your yard, give us a call. We're happy to come out. There's no charge for our visit, and we can help you get started on this journey. If you're already there and you've got tons of native plants in your yard, give us a call and we'll bring you a sign. All right, with that, I can take some questions now. So once again, there's my contact information. There we go. I can pull up the Q&A box. as well as the chat if anybody has any questions that they want to ask right now. I will give it just a few minutes here. Thank you all for joining me today, though, all 17 of you. So let's see. Give it just a couple of minutes here for any questions. And if you don't want to ask a question here, if there's something you want to chat with me about too, again, feel free to drop me an email. I am always available via email to answer any questions you have, everything from what is this thing to, you know, how do I get certified? I will put a plug in if you're looking to identify stuff in your yard. I have recently discovered the app called Picture This. There's a pro version you can get, and you can like pay $30 a year for it, but you can also use it for free. You literally snap a picture of the thing and it tells you what it is. It's kind of amazing, and even really terrible pictures, it's generally fairly accurate. Not always. There's a few things that we haven't, you know, that it hasn't gotten right, but for the most part, it's been surprisingly accurate. I'm really kind of shocked. All right, Tracy wants to know, what are some good native plants for swamps? Well, a lot is going to depend on your sun conditions as well. So if you're looking for shrub type things that are good for wet areas, buttonbush is a great one. It's got a really interesting looking little flower on it. Buttonbush, elderberry is another good shrub that's got some interesting flowers on it. The berries are edible by humans as well as by birds. For plants, if it's really wet, like we're talking standing water type stuff, blue flag iris is absolutely gorgeous in the spring. Bright purple flowers on them. And it likes to have wet feet, which means it doesn't mind having its roots actually in the water. Other things you can plant in wet areas like that, swamp milkweed, queen of the prairie is a really nice one too. Yeah, so there's some there. Take a look at our Bringing Nature Home brochure. Again, that'll show up when you close out of this. And it's a plant list that has all the native plants listed by height, so starting with big tall trees going down to the little ground covers, but it also tells you if they like sun or shade or wet or dry, things like that. Lynn says, I planted a few native plants. The tag says sandy soil preferred, such as wild lupine. Should I actually add actual sand to my soil? Yeah, you'll want to make sure it's well drained. So amend your soil pretty well for those. You know, adding in compost and things like that as well as some sand. Mix it in really good. Again, trying to force things to fit in areas that they're not really intended to can be a little bit tricky, but yeah, you can definitely try that and see if it helps. Generally, that just, like I said, that just means they like it to drain better. So anything you can do to help amend your soil to help break up some of that clay would be good. And Anonymous, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right. And Kate, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm not seeing any other questions. So if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and end for today. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I hope to see you back on Thursday when we will be talking about what's blooming. Let's see. Also, it is not preferred to add milkweed to areas where birds are specifically hanging out. I don't know why. I have tons of milkweed in my yard and I have tons of birds. I've never heard anything about not having milkweed in areas where birds are. Yeah, milkweed brings in tons of bugs, which the birds like. So yeah, I don't see any problems with having milkweed in areas where there are birds. Milkweed does have things that are toxic to animals, to, you know, mammals, humans, but chances are you're not going, us as humans, and really most mammals aren't going to eat enough that it would cause problems, because it just tastes so bad. Be careful if you're around milkweed and get the latex on your hands. Some people can have issues with it, especially if you have a latex allergy. And if you get some on your hands and then touch your eyes, you can have some big problems too. So make sure if you're handling milkweed, you're not also touching your eyes. Tracy says, I'm working on getting rid of buckthorn. Should I wait to plant natives first? Is there anything that could outcompete them? You're not outcompeting buckthorn. Buckthorn can outcompete just about anything. Get rid of that first, then put your natives in. Buckthorn and honeysuckle are nasty, nasty things. I did a whole webinar on invasives. Feel free to check that out. I talk about how to get rid of them, and you know, things like buckthorn and honeysuckle. As much as we don't want overuse of chemicals in your yard, sometimes they're necessary, and buckthorn and honeysuckle are two times when you, unless you can dig them out completely, you're not getting rid of them without chemicals. So so yeah, definitely get rid of them first, then put your natives in. All right. So, and Katie, you are very, very welcome. All right. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week. We hope to see you back again on Thursday. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.